I've just been driving the Polestar 2, which is the quite literally named second car from newish brand Polestar, who in itself is a cooler, slightly edgier sibling of Swedish safety enthusiast Volvo.
Now, they've already brought us the Polestar 1, a 600 brake horsepower, £140,000 Uber plug-in hybrid coupe made of carbon fibre and pure distilled Scandi minimalist style. But now they've got serious, and they're bringing in a new vehicle that competes not in the realms of lottery win fantasy, but in the real world. It's a pure electric car. It's a hatchback. It looks like this.
And I'm going to ruin this story by telling you right now, it's fantastic. But before I tell you why I've fallen so hard for number 2, don't forget, if you head over to electrifying.com, you'll get all your educational needs covered. When it comes to electric cars, we've got everything you need to know. So, the Polestar 2. Polestar's attempts at dominating your driveway with a practical, useful, extremely good-looking electric car. Doesn't sound like a bad idea to me.
The basics look good right from the off. It's under 50k for the first release all-wheel drive model. There will be smaller, cheaper two-wheel drive cars coming later, with 400 brake horsepower and a 78 kilowatt-hour battery that allows for a decent 290-ish mile of range. Now, that price is important because it means that the 2 still qualifies for the government grant for electric cars. So what is it? Well, it's a 5-seat hatchback that's neither an SUV or a crossover. It's a sort of fastback, tall saloon. And did I mention? It's very good looking. So what you get is a useful raised driving position without the aggression of a full-on 4x4. You can get from 0 to 62 in just under 5 seconds, and it has a perfectly adequate 127 mph top speed.
Now, this model has got the £5,000 performance pack added to it, which means that you get Brembo brakes, some tasteful gold bits. Not to mention, slightly oddly, a set of Öhlins 20-way adjustable dampers. Now, that's the kind of thing you'd normally find on circuit cars, and it means that you can have a lot of fun setting up the suspension to your taste using a set of spanners if you'd like to, which, if you ask me, is slightly strange for a car that's probably not going to head to the track.
But forget all of that, because take a look inside. An 11-inch touchscreen, the kind of calm, serious, but exceptionally good-looking design that makes driving a pleasure. The touchscreen, in a world first, is powered by the good folk at Google, so it's more like your phone. And it really, really works. It's got Google Maps built in, and eventually it's even going to get things like Netflix and YouTube. Come on, take note. But everyone else? What I really love about this interior is the detail. So much thought has gone into it. The gear selector is designed as a little rest for your arm when you're on the move, and it steadies your hand when you're making adjustments to the touchscreen. There are light woods, cool touches, vegan leather, and absolutely brilliant seats. You don't even have to push a button to start it. If you've got the key on you, the car will open itself. Then all you have to do is press the brake and it's ready to go. When you leave, just put the car in park, out you go, and it will shut down on its own.
Anyway, time for some serious consumer testing now. We decided to ask the Electrifying crew what you wanted to know about the Polestar 2, and you sent us your questions. So here are the answers, and our very first Electrifying question time. Well, in terms of efficiency, it's not the best, but equally, it's not the worst. It's very aerodynamic, but it is pretty heavy. In fact, this car is 200 kilograms heavier than its main rival. That's the equivalent of having an extra adult and a couple of kids on board, or 10 big holiday suitcases, or a white Rhino. Which is random, but very true. Anyway, we've only had a couple of hours in the car, so we'll report back on the range in more detail when we test it in a couple of weeks. As for efficiency, well, if you charge at home, you should get around 27 miles for every pound that you spend on electricity. of course it's fast, it's electric, so it's a given that it's quick off the mark. You get £487 before instantly hitting all four wheels, which means you get 0 to 62 in 4.7 seconds. And you max out at 127 miles per hour if you're in Germany and you're in a hurry to get to the nearest charger. Look, this isn't the kind of crazy speed that you'll find in some electric cars. It feels smoother, calmer, more refined, but it's definitely there when you need it. Now that really depends on your deposit and of course your mileage, but expect between £550 to £650 per month on a lease or PCH. Now, if you're using salary sacrifice, that will drop to £400 out of your monthly pay packet. And if you're unsure about all the ins and outs of salary sacrifice, then we've got a handy explainer over on electrifying.com. Well, it's a little bit firm, but boy, does it handle into a corner. You know, not in a hugely sports car-ish way. It doesn't feel wildly entertaining, but in a stable, sorted, premium, no-nonsense kind of way. The whole thing just feels very sorted, very confident. It's a comfortable hug of engineering that makes you feel nice and safe and confident. And that's a really good thing for a car to be. But then again, with 20 different options available from those adjustable dampers, after a bit of fiddling, you could probably get it to feel any way you want it to. Although, as I said before, I'm not sure who is actually going to do that.
Before I answer this, I'm simply going to point out that the Polestar 2 is not only Swedish, but its CEO is actually a designer. So as you would imagine, design is its strong point. You know, I think it looks great in the interior. It feels techy and cool, but it's also beautifully put together. You can really tell that Polestar is part of a family that's been building cars forever, because it does feel solid and well built. And in keeping with the company's sustainable ethos, it's also got a vegan interior, which is something I love. In fact, the whole car is vegan, which is a line I thought I'd never hear myself say in a review, but there you go.
As I've mentioned before, this car has the performance pack fitted, which means it gets those 20-inch wheels, so it's a little bit firm, particularly when you consider that underneath it's pretty much a Volvo XC40, which, let's face it, errs on the side of comfort. But if you spec the smaller wheels, I'm guessing that really will make a difference. But once again, we will report back on that one in our longer test.
We haven't had a chance to tow anything on this test, but when I can get Wookie to part with his caravan, I will report back in full. It should be better than a diesel at towing though, because electric driving gives you instant pulling power. Now that is clearly going to hurt the range, and I'm also not sure how well a caravan will go down at a public charging point. And if you do need to tow, then you'll want to option the electronic tow bar, which is a £1,000 extra.
It does. The Android system is very clever and it takes all the hassle out of charging on longer drives. So you put your destination into the map and it will automatically work out how much battery you have, how much you're going to need to get there, and how you usually drive. And it will analyse all that information and suggest stopping points along the way so that you make sure you get to your destination without any range anxiety at all. Oh, don't worry, Dan. Asking about the boot doesn't make you an old man. It just makes you a sensible man. And indeed, because as you can see, this is a proper hatchback, unlike some of its rivals. It has a really good size boot. Before I show it to you, let me talk about the ways there are to open it, because there are four. There's a button on the side of the steering wheel. You can open it via the key. There's another little release button under here. And if all else fails and your hands are full of shopping or bags, sports kit, you can wave your foot around, and it opens like that. Once you're inside, it's nice and wide. There is a bit of a lip there, but not too much. It's also really nice and deep, and then you've got these handy compartments that allow you to split the space up. And under there, ta-da, there's another compartment. And of course, round at the front, as you would expect, you've got the obligatory frunk, fruit, whatever you prefer to call it, where you can store your charging cables. No. Well, the range was pretty accurate when I was driving it today, but you know, it's like any car with a trip meter, even a diesel. The way you drive it will affect the figure that it calculates, and we'll need to spend a little bit more time with it to give you a full answer on that one. Regen, a subject which is very close to my heart because I really like strong regen on an electric car. It basically gives you one pedal driving. And yes, the Polestar 2 does have really strong brake regeneration. I think there was a little bit of discussion in the development of this car with the engineers who had worked on lots of petrol and diesel cars, but in the end the decision was taken to go for it, and I'm glad they have. It's got really nice strong regen. You can use one pedal driving, so lift off the accelerator to slow down and then off you go again. If that's not for you, then there is a setting that allows you to lower it. But you know, if you're unsure about that heavier regeneration, I would say just go for it, live with it for a while, because once you get used to it, I don't think there's any going back. Yeah, this is really big news because the Polestar 2 is the first car in the world to come fully integrated with the Android operating system. Now, Apple lovers will have to wait until next year for an update, which will be sent over the airways as an upgrade when it's ready. So, does it work with an iPhone? Yeah, it does. It works brilliantly. It's actually a fantastic system. It's incredibly intuitive. I really like the graphics. It's just so easy to use, easy to operate. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've got through almost the whole of this review and I haven't mentioned the T word once. Not a once. But inevitably, here it comes. Wow, that's such a big question, isn't it? But as a serious challenger to something like the Tesla Model 3, then the Polestar has some serious firepower. You know, as I said at the top, I'm blown away by it. I think it's fantastic. You know, if electric cars are coming on in leaps and bounds like this, then I think the future is really exciting. So, back to the question, is it as good as a Tesla? Well, I'm not going to tell you the answer. You're going to have to wait to watch our twin test to get that one answered. So do make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get a notification when that video has landed. And if you want to know all the details about the Polestar, head over to electrifying.com.
If the Polestar 2 has whet your appetite for some luxury electric, then check out my review of the Jaguar I-Pace and look at Nikki's review of the Tesla Model 3.